I'm Phil Cooley, I'm the quality manager at Bond Digital Health. We're a software medtech company based in Cardiff. We have produced a piece of software to support manufacturers of point-of-care diagnostic devices to enable the digitization of raw data from diagnostic devices. Taking on those sort of cultural aspects, quality cultural aspects, accepting having to sort of follow process, establish process, effectively communicate process, and evidence the existence of those things, whether that's records for documentation, records of training, records of manufacturing and so forth. Those kind of concepts didn't really exist. It was very much a startup organisation wanting to do things, be very reactive. I felt we would do a lot better to sidestep the effort, shall we say, required to establish processes that are relatively straightforward in terms of document control. If there's already systems out there that exist, why try to find workarounds and convoluted processes to achieve that using multiple different systems when in fact there are pre-existing ones on the market that can fit that bill, meaning there's less need or less effort required in that area. More can actually be focused on realization rather than actually how do we manage these things. Engaging with an electronic quality management system, easier for people to engage with, people to understand the existence of a system that helped us to manage quality, being able to more readily control that information and be able to present it to people rather than in disparate collections of documentation in other software tools or through sort of communication channels and things like that. By sort of saying, well, we have a central repository, a central area where we are handling this information relating to quality, the establishment of our quality system, processes, records of training. I think that just helps people to sort of coalesce around the idea of a quality system and how it was helping us to evidence and bring forward that, let's say, that objective evidence to be able to work off to say things are working here, things are not working here, how do we actually push this forward? We didn't have a quality system already in place, so there wasn't necessarily anything to benchmark off in terms of we had X, Y, and Z processes needing a system that could map to our pre-existing processes at the time. So that, I suppose, gave me a bit of freedom and flexibility to be able to say, well, I can look for a software solution and utilize their inbuilt structures to then map out our process and procedures for requirements of the quality system. There are other providers out there of eQMS systems that are very, very well established, very technically capable and able, but not particularly accessible to organisations that haven't necessarily got any of the fundamental basics in place of a quality system. You can set up software tools with so much complexity that you think that's great, but then you start to use it and you get so lost in the functionality of it that you actually end up you sort of tail off using things because it just doesn't quite get picked up by everybody, no one really quite understands it, and so they sort of drift off and tail off. Qualio, to its positive, it's not overly complicated in terms of those structures that are set out. I think that is perhaps where it sort of nudged me towards Qualio a little bit as something that was a much more accessible interface. I felt that Qualio it provided us with some of those foundational aspects of a quality system in an accessible way that people could actually get behind. fundamental structure is there of approvals, reviews of documentation, version control, awareness training records to actually indicate that we have not only established a procedure but actually put that in front of the relevant team members that need to understand that and who have then acknowledged, yes, I acknowledge that record there. Been able to create short questionnaires to get some record of engagement with that procedure. None of that have I had to think about how to actually establish that. It's pre-existing, so my time has been much better spent being able to actually think about how do we want to go about realising product. So I think for us as a company, just going from ultimately zero to a quality management system, a certified quality management system, having Qualio in place just allowed just a lot of those fundamentals to be not necessarily ignored, but to just be acknowledged as already there. Again, allowing us to just focus on the content itself. The documents library, documents as it's called, is probably the main, or has been the main focus over the past 12 months, 18 months, as we've gone from introducing Qualio to establishing the building blocks of a quality management system, those processes, procedures, and evidencing of that. So being able to set periodic review on documentation. So again, if you are creating those as standalone documents in an online repo somewhere, you're ending up then going to a calendar somewhere and setting reminders to actually go back and review that document. Whereas in Qualio, you can set 6 months, 12 months, whatever time frame you want to put against that document, and you will get notifications to say, hey, that document's up for review. If you can establish training records against those procedural documentation, documents that you've established as needing some evidence that people have read and understood that, to be able to then say, yes, we are effectively communicating this information out, yes, we are actually getting the rest of the team understanding why we have a quality system. And Qualio does that perfectly. We have just completed the validation of the new supplier feature for 2022, but we're sort of at the point now of starting to build out the library of critical suppliers in that Qualio system. And again, having that ability to collect your information to a single point and then be able to set that periodic review, I think is invaluable. The events function, we have those event functions set up for non-conformity. Corrective action as a separate event, preventive action, opportunity for improvement, change controls, and just being able to set up a little bit of a stepwise event, just as simple as investigation, root cause, what actions are you going to take, what's your verification to actually just say, did that work, has that prevented that from happening again. We now have a consolidated device file which reflects the development of that product. That is a collection of controlled records in the Qualio system. 18 months ago we did not have anything like that to reflect on any of the products that we previously produced. We now have a certified quality system as of November 2021, and in large part that is down to being able to just rapidly respond to auditors' questions and queries. It makes audits a lot simpler and easier by enabling people to be more comfortable engaging with that body of information. To an extent, audits can become a joint exercise in the sense that everyone takes a little bit of responsibility, accountability. People start recognising that they are process owners by simply being a named document owner, as an example. It just helps to enable engagement from other people. It's all digital, it's all there in a single system, so being able to just share your screen and just walk people through information rather than having to bounce around between multiple different locations to be able to address a particular question that an external party might have. I mean, that's again been somewhat invaluable.